how many of these retreats have you been on? I mean,
Vipassana.
Before you go, I mean, would you say that it's been one of the more successful modalities you've discovered for your spiritual journey?
Unquestionably.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. And I'm not a gullible person.
You're from New York. I don't think
I have a bullshit detector that reaches down to South Tucson, honey. I discovered Vipassana in 2005, and it was just as my teacher says, perhaps it was some past karma, some good part of me that you did. He's got this thing like, so whatever good stroke of luck that I had. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I just celebrated 35 years clean and sober. And I'm the daughter of a man who died of alcoholism at 48 years old in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. So I have a history of alcoholism and trauma. Mm-hmm. A lot of trauma comes with a story like that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of excessive use of alcohol and drugs in my younger years. And I was in a culture that was totally supportive of it. I was in the 60s and 70s.
Fair enough.
You know, I mean, in America.
That's how I feel in the music scene sometimes.
Yeah, so I mean,
trying
it was like,
trying to live here. And
I was the life of the party, and you know.
That is very believable.
An aspiring rock star, and you know, so anyway, or folk musician, or whatever I was going to be. But anyway, so I had quite a few years of sobriety under my belt, but I really wasn't doing a real prayer and meditation in my life. Mm-hmm. So I was sort of staying sober by the skin of my teeth. I still had a lot of negative thinking and anxiety, and I was in a relationship with a similar-minded person who was sober for quite a while, but also not really growing along spiritual lines. Mm-hmm. So I was stuck at about 17, 18 years sober, and I think I mentioned to you last night, the only thing worse than two drunks in a household together is two dry drunks in a household together. It was getting really funky. Yeah. And so, anyway, we broke up, and I said, well, I'm going to make lemonade out of lemons. I went to New York City, and I got my LLM in intellectual property at Cardozo School of Law. So I took a year or two off and took a sabbatical, long-needed sabbatical. But, you know, my dry drunkenness was actually kind of a workaholic thing, too, because I just finished my PhD a few years before that, blah, blah, blah. I had to stay busy. So I was in New York, and I was on the phone with a person who's been a very supportive person all my life, and she was in Tucson, and she said, "Oh, my daughter's coming back from a silent retreat," and something clicked in my head at that moment. And I've always been interested in meditation. I actually hung around with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in 1979, 1980 up in Boulder. I was at the Dharma art seminars and all that. Everybody was drinking their asses off up there with Chogi. I used to call them Bodhisakis. That was my name for the Chogyam Trungpa crowd, Bodhisakis. And everyone was blasted. He died 48 years old too.
Really?
Oh yeah, he was very alcoholic. But somehow brilliant. I mean, his books are brilliant. So don't throw out the baby with the bathwater with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. I meditated with Dalai Lama when he came to Tucson a couple of times, and I never felt that I had a technique, and I didn't stick with anything, and I didn't stick with prayer and meditation. So I was like a scream and a prayer. You know, I was like what they call the foxhole prayers. You know, when you're in deep shit, you got to pray to Jesus. I'll never do this again, whatever. You know, but I wasn't disciplined along those lines, and so I therefore was not growing spiritually, which is crucial. Yeah. It's a matter of time. You're just going to get more and more miserable. You're either going forward or you're going backwards. You know? And so, so she said, "Oh, silent retreat," and something went off. I went, "That's what I need." Mm-hmm. I need like 10 days. I thought of it as like just a mental vacation. Like I don't talk to anybody for 10 days. I don't even talk to myself for 10 days. I just like get off the planet for 10 days, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what was it? And so she said, oh, it was this, you know, they have a place in Chicago or outside of Chicago. They have another place in Massachusetts. And so she gave me, it turned out to be Vipassana as taught by S.N. Goenka. Mm-hmm. I had absolutely no idea what I was going to. But I started to follow up on this. And I signed up for a 10-day course in Massachusetts. I was living in New York at the time. Mm-hmm. It's 2005. And then I punked out. It was a 4-hour drive away, but I thought, I punked out. So then I said, no, I really do want to do this. And I was dating a woman in Seattle. Mm-hmm. Don't ever do a long-distance, coast-to-coast relationship. It gives you sleep deprivation, like nobody's business.
Yep, I'm familiar with that.
Anyway, I signed up for a course and I bought a plane ticket in Washington State. And so now I had to go. So I sat for a 10-day course in Onalaska, a beautiful center in Onalaska, it's just south of Olympia. And just like everybody else who does a 10-day course, there's a struggle involved. It goes up and down. Sometimes you make up little stories in your head about how wonderful it is. Sometimes you make up stories about what a sadist this teacher is. And fortunately, I didn't know anything about it, so I was just surprised by everything. Like the minute I heard Goenka's voice, I was like, and he started chanting, and I thought, this is like the Barry White of Hindu chants. Right? I mean, I had Comedy Central going in my head the whole time, and then he's talking about craving, 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 and all of a sudden Katie Lang's going, constant craving. I mean, I had this whole comedy club going, and was the microphone working? So I got past all that, and
That's
then
the monkey
sometimes he
mind
sounded
right
like
there.
I thought, he sounds like Boris Lugosi. Like, what's going on here? And then the first day, so I said, this is great. And kind of tripping out on it. And then the next day, it's really a struggle. The second day, but you're in these centers that are far away, and you can't really leave. And you make a commitment. And when I make a commitment, I stick to it, no matter what. Just give it a fair trial. Don't mix it up with anything else.
Yeah.
Give it a fair trial for 10 days. It's only 10 days. That's what the mind forgets.
I like that attitude.
The mind forgets, 10 days, like eternity. It's only 10 days.
And it's totally silent?
Totally silent. And you meditate. You get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You start meditating at 4:30. You have breakfast at 6:30. And you have a little break. Then you start meditate. You meditate like 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
You have breaks to walk, breaks to wash your underwear, breaks to go. Delicious vegetarian breakfast and dinner, breakfast and lunch. They don't really do dinner. If you're there the first time, you can have a little snack and some tea. But the next time you go back, you're considered an old student once you finish your first 10-day course. You get the indoctrination. And then you only have a little lemon water or something. And it sounds like it's terrible. It's easy. It actually, your meditation is better. I didn't miss the dinner at all. I mean,
what are the facilities like where you're staying? Like,
it depends. If you're at a formal center, the facilities are quite nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not fancy.
but sensible.
But definitely sensible.
Is it like a shared bathroom situation?
It depends.
It
Every
depends.
center is a little different.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have these like gypsy camps. Like it's not a formal center. It's like a formal center will get together a bunch of volunteers, and then they'll rent a Boy Scout camp, or they'll rent someplace, and then they bring everything. I can't imagine the amount of work. And they'll set up a 10-day sit. So some of the sits I've gone to in the informal places, I might have to share a room with somebody. But you just get through it. The whole thing you're there is to learn equanimity, awareness and equanimity. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
So whether you're sitting on a pillow or your roommate is snoring, you're practicing awareness and equanimity. And
that's a big one.
Most of the time you get, especially if you're an older woman like myself, I think they favor us. And I'm an older student now, so I'll get a private room. And now the center, we have a beautiful center that they completed in Joshua Tree, and you really do have a nice little private room. Not huge, not fancy, but everything you need. And the volunteers take care of everything. One of the things that I love, I was talking about the bullshit detector. Money is not a requirement for Goenka's teachings. And the teachers are not on an ego trip. They're not publishing books and getting you to buy their books. They're not selling you their CDs. There's no fame and ego involved in this whole thing. It's just basically these people, everybody's volunteering.
Yeah.
And so the cost to put on a 10-day sit is vastly diminished because it's reduced, because everybody's volunteering. And so when you make a donation, which isn't required, if you can't afford, it's kind of like AA is like this too.
Yeah.
If you don't have the money, please come anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
That's very good.
And by the time you finish a 10-day sit and you experience the benefits and the insights and see how beneficial it is for you and for the world, you want to share your merit. You've had a change, and now you just feel a little less stingy, a little less, and so you want to support other people getting this beautiful gift. And what they would like you to do even more so is to actually volunteer your time.
Yeah.
So I've gone and worked in the kitchen for 10 days.
Oh, nice.
In California.
It's calling me. Like,
it's fabulous.
It's been calling me for years.
Listen, honey, I did acid. I did all this stuff. I've tried everything. This is it. This is it, honey. This is
right.
so amazing.
Sold.
And they tell you at the end, if you get through the 10 days,
Yeah.
then, the closing discourse, Goenka's, he just says, if you feel that now that you've experienced this, you feel it's beneficial, an intelligent person will continue. Right? If something that's beneficial for you, you'll continue doing it.
Yeah.
And then he says, so if you feel that, then meditate. They want you to meditate 2 hours a day, morning and night, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night.
Yeah.
I have not been able to maintain a 2-hour practice, but I have maintained a 1-hour practice.
I think you're way ahead of the vast majority of us.
All these years. And I maintain my Shila. I don't drink.
Yeah.
I don't steal. I don't lie.
What, did you steal a lot before?
No, I didn't really steal. I wasn't a big thief.
I was wondering why you threw that one in there.
But I did drink.
Well, there was no stealing, I'll tell you
I
that.
did womanize. But I don't, I just try to watch my Shila. I try not to lie.
Right.
It's hard not to lie.
Not
It's hard
lying
not
is
to,
difficult.
yeah,
Most people, 99% of people lie, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
in some
Even
fashion.
in little ways.
And then there's the exaggerations.
Right.
And
That's- yeah.
so I try my best to be conscious of that.
Right.
I think, given how much difficulty I have actually telling lies when I need to think about it, I suppose I'm not doing so bad. But
Yeah. You're probably not doing it bad.
Self-awareness is difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, you do the 10-day sit, and then he says, after a year, if you've practiced for a year, look and see, has your life have things improved in your life?
Yeah.
Like when you used to boil for 2 hours over something, are you boiling for an hour and a half now instead? Or even little, is there improvement? Do you still feel it's beneficial? And if you don't find it to be beneficial, then they encourage you to go find the thing that works for you, but then dig your well there, not 30 10-foot spots all over the acre, you know what I mean, or the whatever piece of you find where the water is, and then you dig and you settle in there, and you keep learning from it. And so that's been 15 years now, and I've gone to quite a few 10-day sits. I've served one 10-day sit. I've served a 3-day sit in Ireland a couple of years ago. I've done 3 Satipatthana suttas. After you've done 3 10-day sits, then you can sit for an 8-day course. You study the Satipatthana Sutta.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's really wonderful. Every night there's a discourse with Goenka. And that's like the dessert of the day, to hear his teaching. He's so wonderful.
Wow.
And he was a very wealthy businessman.
Yeah.
He found Vipassana he was born in Burma to Indian parents. And he feels very blessed that he was born in Burma because that's where the pure technique taught by the Buddha was preserved. After it was, wiped out in northern India and then it returned. But, it's very, I could see where it's very politically threatening because it's so universal. It's just the breath and the somatic experience. There's no Russian breath. There's no English breath. There's no Jewish breath. And it doesn't require a lot of priests. There's no mantras. There's no icons. There's no dreadlocks. There's no goat skins. There's nothing. It's regimented to reduce the variables so that you really know what you're doing. But it's brilliant. It's the pristine technique.
Wow.
And he was a wealthy businessman, but then he was getting migraines, and so somebody said, "Why don't you try?" He was going to doctors all over the world. He got addicted to opioids.
Okay.
Because of the medicines that he was getting and so forth. And somebody said, "Why don't you try this meditation?" And I love when he tells his story. And so he goes to Subya King, or whatever his name is in Burma, this great teacher. And he tells him why he wants to go. And he said, "Well, this isn't a medical school. This is for meditators. You can't come." And he goes, No, please let me in, let me in. The second day, he wants to run away. He's always thankful to the woman who talked him into staying, giving it another try. And so he stays. And at the end, he found it beneficial. And his migraines went away. And then he really pretty much dedicated the rest of his life to spreading Vipassana with no profit to him.
Wow.
He just changed his life. And then his wife became a Vipassana teacher with him. She started going to the courses, and my God, the rest is just history. It's like really big.
It's huge.
All over the world.
It's all over the world.
It's kind of like Bill Wilson's story in America too. Like a miracle came out of a couple of drunks in America, right? It's a total miracle, the 12-step program.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
The miracles of hundreds of thousands, millions of lives transformed.
Some of these programs are really do feel that way. I mean, there's this method for quitting smoking cigarettes. The Easy Way by Alan Carr, which is really popular. And it is like, you know, if you look at it from the outside, it just looks like cold turkey. But it's much more than cold turkey. It's like a framework change in your mind about how you think about it in the first place. It's amazing how well it works, right? It has a much higher success rate than, you know, nicotine patches, gums,
that
vapor,
stuff
all that
doesn't
stuff.
work at all. That's just the bio empire, that whole thing. But the thing that I love about, well, with the Bill Wilson story too, I mean, he came to this miraculous place out of desperation, and just did Goenka in a way. It was his last shop on the block for him to get rid of these migraines and to get off this opioid thing, you know. And then they went ahead and formed something that you don't have to pay money, and everybody volunteers. There's 1 million bodhisattvas sharing their merit in these kind of places.
I think I really have to look into this. I know there's a center in Ontario. I think maybe I'll.
Oh, they have centers. I did a course. I did one Satipatthana Sutta in Kelowna, up in northwestern Canada.
Kelowna, BC?
Yeah. Oh, it's in Merritt. There's a little town called Merritt. I flew into Kelowna.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a lovely, lovely center.
Yeah?
Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
Very beautiful place.
I'll have to find the center for me.
Sometimes you go to these beautiful places and you're sitting there with your eyes closed, and then, of course, the mind always wants to come in. I have this expression, I say, oh, here comes my mind, look busy. It always wants to talk you out of like what you're doing, you know. And so I was sitting up there in Merritt, and I was thinking, why are you sitting here with your eyes closed in this beautiful place? You know, you come to this beautiful place and you're going to sit for 8 days with your eyes closed.
Possible to meditate with your eyes open?
It is possible, and there's a lot of techniques that are open eye. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche is an open eye technique.
Yeah. Do you?
But I like the closed eye. I like going in. This is what works for me, so I stick to the instructions. I don't mix and match or anything. I just stick to this, and I let this take me.
Does it mostly just revolve around focus on the breath, or does it go to a different stage after that? What's after you? I mean, I think the focus on the breath is hard to master, even though it's the first instruction and the main instruction. It's really difficult. Like everybody who tries it, you know, just after a second and a half.
Well, the thing is with the technique is that it's somatic, and that helps you concentrate.
Right.
The goal of the technique is
somatic, meaning it actually, if you breathe in a certain way, it produces a certain biophysical.
The whole thing about Vipassana is the sensations.
Right.
And the sensations get you to reality as it is.
Right, okay.
Right? And that's the big insight, reality as it is. And it's changing.
Okay.
You start observing it's changing all the time. So for the first 4 days of a Vipassana 10-day sit, you do what's called Anapana. And that's the breath. But it's not like some techniques have the breath out here. Like you're with your eyes open and you're watching your breath out here. Think about it. How's that going to work? Well, how can you, I mean, where's your breath isn't out here. Yeah. You can't experience your breath out here. And your eyes are open, so you're like, so with the Anapana, you just focus, you concentrate on the touch of the breath as it's going in, it's going out, and you break down your awareness to this very simple, universal experience. Yeah. And if your concentration is not good, you might not even feel the touch of the breath, or you might notice I'm congested, but you're aware that you're congested. Yeah. So you're just developing awareness. People expect awareness to be a big psychedelic trip.
No, I mean that's the biggest realization is how mundane
awareness is.
Awareness is.
My left nostril is congested. Yeah. My right nostril is breathing, and you're totally focused. You're here. Yeah. You're here. You're not in wherever. And so you're sitting there, and generally you're not congested, and you're breathing, and you can. If you're concentrating, you can feel a little breath. If you can't feel it, then you go, and so you can remind yourself what it feels like, you know what I mean? But you feel the touch of the breath. Then you come back. Then your mind will run away. Oh, the breath. Your mind will run away. You come back. But you know you're focusing on the breath because you can feel it. That's the beauty of the somatic part of it. Instead of it, like, how do I know if I'm focusing on the breath? I don't know. I'm looking at a bumper sticker. How do I know? I mean, So you do that for 4 days. And during that time, then your mind, the conversations that you came into the hall with, while you were driving up there, all these things in your mind, the newscast that you listen to, because you check your cell phone and everything at the door. All that starts receding, getting further back in there. The mind starts to settle a little bit more. You come back to the breath a little more easily. You start feeling it. And as your concentration improves, you start to feel subtler and subtler sensations. Then, after the fourth day, then you start doing Vipassana, because you can really start to feel very subtle. You feel sensations that you felt all your life, but you weren't aware of them. They're always, it's common sensations. We're not aware.
Right.
So then you go, okay, so now you're going to focus, and all you do, the only thing that your only job is to observe. Just observe. Don't try to control it. Don't judge it. Just observe. If you don't feel anything, you don't feel anything. You observe that you don't feel anything. So then you do the 4 days, you start feeling very subtle sensations. Then you start observing at the top of your head. You just observe. Next thing you know, you will feel. Where there's life, there's sensation. You'll feel something. And then the minute you feel something, you move it to the next spot. And you just observe that spot. And then you feel anything. It could be a cool breeze. It could be a little tingling. It could be something, anything. And you keep doing that. Next thing you know, it's flowing. You can feel these subtle sensations
throughout your body.
Yeah. But you don't let your mind jump to like, oh, I feel it here, and your mind jumps here. It jumps here.
You can just, it's continuous throughout.
You observe.
Yeah.
And then you start to, and you feel, okay, I'm going to observe my back. You feel the sensations. And if you don't feel it, you wait for a minute. You just observe. If you don't feel it, you move on. You say, I'm not observing anything there. I'm observing that I don't feel anything there. You move on. Let's see if there's something the next time. And then you start going up, down, up, down, up, down. Then instead of it turning into like a rite or a ritual, getting rote, then you can start moving it this way and this way. And you're just observing, but you don't just jump around and say, oh, there's a pain in my leg and I'm going to throw everything there, all my attention there. So you go down, maybe your leg is hurting. You observe it. It's hard.
Yeah.
But you just observe it.
Yeah.
You say, oh, it's hurting. Oh, okay. Let's see if it happens the next time. And then you observe over Vipassana Center in North America.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's where Goenka started teaching there.
Wow. So, what age were you when you started?
Let's see, 52.
Okay.
And I was just lucky that it turned out to be Goenka.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't know what I was going to.
I